everybody, this is Skeet.
Mosh and Mikey.
Rock and Roll Roundtable.
Yep, presented by our good friends over at Moshman Media.
This week, classic punk versus modern punk.
Yeah, classic punk. Defined by, you can define it in a bunch of different ways. I call it 70s and 80s. There's a style to it. That's how I define classic punk. And be honest, modern punk to me is more polished music. It's just not as sloppy, better production, uh, different kind of stuff to it. Then classic punk is angrier to me. The modern punk is happier and go lucky punk.
Raw.
Yeah.
Classic punk is a lot more raw and unpolished. So that
Yeah.
kind of sums up the immediate difference between your classic punk and your modern punk.
Absolutely.
For sure,
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
agree with that. So, like when you think of classic punk, what's the very first band that pops in your head? Ramones, right? It's usually there for me too, but I usually have there's a top two for me.
Okay.
It's the Ramones and it's the Misfits.
Okay.
Just because I think growing up in the United States, they were two US bands, that were punk. They had
Okay.
their style.
Yeah.
The New York CBGBs kind of stuff that went on there. But if you go across the pond where I think punk more originated, really honestly, you get the bands like Sex Pistols, very well known, big, iconic in England. You get the Dead Kennedys of the world over there. So even the Clash. I mean, the Clash is like, I don't consider the Clash like the same classic punk. It was like classic punk time era, but it would have fit better almost modern time. Just because it wasn't like full speed ahead, million
Okay.
miles an
Okay.
hour.
So let's do real quick. We'll kind of summarize some of those bands. So Ramones, they were very catchy. They were actually, some of it felt more polished than the true punk. So a lot of the punk was a fucking attitude. It was fucking raw. They You couldn't understand some of the stuff they said because they were just, it was so fucking emotional that, you know what I'm saying? And you
Yeah,
had to throw Blondie in there. Blondie was actually punk. They were
yeah,
punk, but they were like that crazy weird punk where they dipped their toes in other stuff. So they were experimental punk. I don't fucking know, but
you could
they
call them
played.
that.
They did the CBGBs with the Ramones.
Yeah,
So Blondie falls into that fucking category of classic punk because they were on the scene at the time, and they did do some punk songs. I mean,
and a lot
hell,
of people, yeah,
yeah, she fucking rapped.
yeah, yeah. It's considered like the first rap performance ever or
Yeah,
something. So,
it could be right up there with, you know, at the time they didn't, it wasn't rap because nobody knew what the fuck rap was because it hadn't been created yet. But
yeah,
I've heard
it's like,
people say that, it's like, well, Blondie did this, and not taken away from the early rap groups.
yeah, like Sugar Hill Gang and all them. They were like
Yeah,
early bunch of the innovators.
but that was a completely different style. But what I'm saying is, that list that I got for this, I mean, Iggy and the Stooges. I forgot about the
Yeah,
fucking Stooges. Uh, Buzzcocks, I remember hearing about them. The Damned. Patti Smith.
Mhm.
MC5. I mean, Kick
Yeah.
Out the Jams, Stiff Little Fingers, Devo. I mean, Devo is punk, but they were like a crazy
Yeah.
hybrid punk thing. The Germs. I've heard of the Germs. They actually threw New York Dolls and the Velvet Underground and Nico in. Black Flag.
Yeah. Absolutely. Black Flag. Yeah.
So there was Generation X, where Billy Idol came from.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there was a lot of cool, but very fucking, fucking punk. Some of these were
Yeah.
very raw. And they threw the Police in this, and early
Yeah.
Police maybe, but they definitely, you know what I'm saying. They kind of they were what they were.
Yeah. They probably just really didn't have a spot for them back then. They throw them into whatever they don't understand is punk kind of sort of thing.
So
It's
that
like
was
I
kind of the
remember.
list. That was the list that popped up for me. Was there anybody that I missed kind of hollering these bands out?
Uh, I had Bad Religion come on Bad Religion. I remember has been around for a long time, and I really can't consider Rancid them guys to be modern because they're
Okay.
still like '80s. So Rancid with Ruby Soho and all that stuff back in the day was very good. The Descendants, they've been around for a long time. I've heard a lot of people talk about them. You had GBH, Bad Brains.
Okay.
Uh, that was more of that. And even you creep into the '80s with to get like Gangrene and stuff.
Okay.
But those are something I'll talk about in a little bit because to be honest, classic punk and modern punk, and there's another sub kind of thing that I think is better than both of them. And it's just my opinion.
Okay.
Well said. Like I go to Europe, I listen to a guy over in England quite a bit. He talks about the Smiths, who
Okay.
Patti Smith came from, and I think Morrissey was in that band with them,
Okay.
and a band called The Jam. The Jam I'd never heard of, but they talk
Okay.
about them a lot. And it's like they must be big in England and all that good stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, I just listened to a playlist that had most of those bands you talked about and all the bands I talked about and a bunch of repeats, different songs. Man, I cannot get into classic punk. I just can't. I don't know why. And it's like I listened to it back in the day, but I listened to more. If I listened to that, it was the Ramones, it was the Misfits, it was Circle Jerks, and some Sex Pistols, a couple Dead Kennedy songs, and really that's the extent of my punk listening day, back then. So when I try to listen to it now, it seems tired to me, a little bit like that's been done a million times now. Because once you
Okay.
hear, the punk formula is 2 or 3 minutes max, fast, usually catchy, repetitive. I mean, a lot of their stuff, Blitzkrieg Bob, for God's sakes, it's basically repeating itself. And Nirvana copied a lot of that. They really did. Kurt Cobain wrote a song. It would be three verses, all the same, back to back to back. No bridges, no chorus, or no like stops, no extra parts. It's just bam, bam, bam. And that's the punk formula for me. There's not a lot of intricate punk songs from classic punk.
Classic punk. Yes.
It's just adrenaline and anger and fighting the man, whatever. That's what punk was meant to be. Was anti everything, just anti establishment. We don't care that you like us or don't. We're gonna play. We're gonna play for eight people in this somebody's garage for free on a Friday night and drive 400 miles home. That was the punk mentality of stuff. Not saying that's a bad thing, but as a music listener now and not really being at a show or following, it's just kind of like, man, that's just nothing. And you take it for granted because you say, well, that's nothing. There's nothing to those songs. But without classic punk, we wouldn't have got anywhere else. You wouldn't have had their Nirvanas. You wouldn't have had the modern punk bands
Yeah.
because those guys had to set the precedent and say, we're going to be different. We're not going to be some cookie cutter Bee Gees. I love the Bee Gees and all that, but they had their set formula. The Black Sabbaths and Led Zeppelins were the rock. So where are we going to fit in? We want to play faster. And you also got to say they probably helped invent thrash. You almost have, well, you have to,
Yeah.
because the playing fast was not a big thing until punk came along, really.
Well, and so we got exposed to some of these bands through us catching some of our buddies that were in punk slash hardcore bands in the 90s, mid 90s, and that's in
Right.
that era where we were out playing shows. And that fucking punk scene was very much alive and well, and it still had the attitude. The shows that we saw, some of the punk hardcore bands that we saw were fucking excellent. So even if it's some of the stuff is monotonous, like you say, musically, oh, it's not very interesting. To be at a fucking punk show was out fucking rageous.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
so
yeah.
much better being at a punk show and catching the atmosphere and the people that are into it and the fucking the pits where everybody's fucking going crazy and shit. That fucking energy is off the fucking charts. Punk shows
Oh,
are
yeah.
fucking awesome. So I can only imagine what the classic punk shows were fucking like. I mean, it had to have been madness and anarchy and all that fucking stuff that really embodied the fucking classic punk. And it carried on. So, like you said, it inspired so much for a period to where we get to the modern punk. Which hopefully
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
segued into
I
that
mean,
nicely for you.
yeah. Yeah. The only thing else I'll say about classic punk is, you have classic rock too. And if you listen to a lot of classic rock now, it seems mundane because, it's 30 years ago. It's, 50 years ago, or 30 years ago since we saw it in the clubs, which we thought was insane back then. Those guys were great. It was fun. But you're talking 50 years ago, some or more from some of these bands. And it's like most music that's 50 years old now is kind of dated for me, listening to everything. So I'm not trying to slight classic punk. I'm just saying, just going back now as a listener and just sitting there listening, not getting the full effect, it doesn't seem as big and bulbous as it was 30 years ago for us.
Yes, yes,
So we swing into modern with that. I guess modern punk for me is the main bands that I think of when I think of those is Green Day. A lot of these guys started in the early '90s, late '80s, whatever. But it was Green Day, The Offspring, Sum 41, Blink 182, NoFX, Pennywise. I threw in there just because they had a little more of an appeal to modern than they do classic. And then you got bands that aren't really well known, like as much for overall, like Rise Against. I really think some of their stuff's very cool. It throws back to classic, but it's still modern. So, and you got the funny ones that I enjoy, like Bowling for Soup. I mean, they're good. They're actually a good band. It's just, they have some goofy songs, but that's okay. It's just a different twist on the angst and pissed offness. Now it's more like humorous. NoFX had a lot of that too. They had some angry songs,
yeah.
but they had some funny shit. Linoleum, man, it's like, come on, give me a break. It's just great. Fat Mike and all them guys. But I don't know. I really did. I mean, I listened to a lot of that. I love a lot of that, but it's still that's to me is like it never was in my full listening palette all the time. I liked some of the bands a lot. I have a couple CDs from each one of those bands, I think, laying around somewhere. Except for like Bowling for Soup, I don't have that. Uh, but my deal was, what do you think about modern? What do you consider modern punk to be?
Well, again, we do a lot of like playlists to kind of get an idea of what is considered whatever genre that we're looking into. And
Right.
I found this guy's playlist, this Kyle Conover. I don't know. It's just somebody that popped up on the iTunes or the Apple Music, and
Okay.
man, he had a lot of Fallout Boy. Had a lot of
Yeah, I could
Fallout
see
Boy.
that.
He threw the Killers in there. Panic at the Disco. I don't.
Ah,
I so I
that's
don't know if
that.
he just threw some bands in there. Blink, yeah, Blink in there. They threw Goo Goo Dolls in there. Are they punk? Are they
No,
modern punk?
hell no,
Simple
no.
Plan. Did you said Simple Plan, right?
No, I didn't, but they could be. They're like a tweener. A lot of them bands you're talking like Fallout Boy and Simple Plan and them Panic at the Disco. I don't consider them punk. I consider them more emo. But I think emo and punk were kind of melding together at
Kind of
point.
hand in hand.
So I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think they're all tweeners with that.
Uh,
Newfound Glory.
All American Rejects. Paramore. Paramore's
That's
got a
more.
kind of got a punk feel to it. MGMT.
Hmm.
And I'm just kind of 5 seconds of summer. So some of these names, I really clueless. Your Bowling for Soup come up again.
Yeah.
Good Charlotte,
Yeah, they could be considered punk. Yeah.
Dashboard Confessional,
No, not for
American
me.
American Hi-Fi. Maybe they had songs that were punk.
They might, but all those seem to be what I mean, it's just classification there probably for him
Okay,
versus guys like me. I consider all those emo bands. It's more like, but emo is like the stepbrother, step cousin of punk, really. They
okay,
had enough
okay,
anger and stuff in them, but they had the emotion. It was just emotional, more emotional
okay.
than angry. So, like,
Jimmy Eat World, Jimmy Eat World.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
that's emo.
okay. So there was some of these songs that might have had a punk flavor to it, but you're right. It really is kind of more polished, catchier. I guess the pop punk stuff is more appealing because it's still got the catchy and it's just not as raw. So
Yeah,
there's some
yeah,
enjoyable songs that have got that I'm like, oh okay, that's cool. It feels like punk, but it's still like you said, very very polished, very catchy, very radio friendly.
yeah, and there's always the underground too. And if you're not in the genre and like a consistent visitor to that genre of music, you're gonna miss a lot of the underground. Like there's metalcore and deathcore and stuff bands that I can name out, and you'll be like, who, what,
Yeah.
where? Because you don't listen to that stuff on the
Yes.
daily.
Yes.
I don't really listen to a lot of modern punk and pop punk. I mean, just the big major players here, but a lot of those bands you were talking about just now, I listen to them a shit ton. I'm an emo listener at
Okay.
times. So I guess if you classify those punk, then I listen to more than I thought. And that's the problem you have with all the genres of music we have now. It's like we say modern punk. Does that include emo? Does it include, experimental? Does it include, this and that? I just say it's all music. It's got a feel of punk to it, just for the emotional spot of it. But like Blink, I think Blink and Sum 41 and Green Day, even to an extent, The Offspring, those are more to me straight out punk, but modern punk. The other
Okay.
bands had a little more softness to them. That's where I get into emo. They're a
Okay.
little
Okay.
more constructed songs, like 4 or 5 minute songs. They're still catchy, but they're not the quick hitters. Like Offspring still does a bunch of quick hitters, 3
Yeah.
minutes, 3 minutes. Same with NoFX. Those guys, they stuck to the kind of the classic punk formula more. But yeah, the whole world of emo and modern punk, I think you could melt them together and be okay with it.
Okay.
Just like classic punk, there's probably like you could throw that experimental stuff in with that. Like Sonic Youth could be considered punk to an extent. The Talking
Okay.
Heads probably could have been. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
if you stretch if
I
you
think
stretch
Talking
it.
Heads were on the list too. I forgot
Yeah.
about them because I
Yeah,
like
they
Talking Heads for what they did. They were just like, wow, that's some
yeah, I mean,
crazy shit.
yeah. Psycho Killer, man, is
Yeah.
still top.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a badass song.
Yeah.
So yeah, the biggest thing with I come away from punk was, I could try to decide between classic and modern, but I don't have to because my favorite genre is really the
Okay.
crossover punk, which is bands like Suicidal Tendencies.
Okay.
That were punk kind of started, but they've hybrided out. DRI was one of those
Okay.
that could go either way. DRI to me reminds us of our local friends, Legbone.
Yeah.
They really do. That's the kind of vibe I get with DRI. They can go rock to punk to rock to punk to punk to rock and not have a problem with it. They can have a 2 minute song, they can have a 4 minute song. It just depends on what they're doing at that time. Bands like the Cro-Mags, just hard as hell thumping music, but they still had the speed, they still had the angry in them, they still had the punk sensibility. And Gangrene, you know, just the fun stuff. The skater punk would be a crossover kind of hybrid for me. Those I enjoy more that are
Okay.
not like the Ramones and Misfits, but they're not Some and Blink 182. They're just like, we're going to do both sides. And anybody that knows us from the band we were in together
Yeah.
knows why I think that way.
Yeah.
Because if we wanted to play a fast song, we're just going to play it. And
Yeah.
it's going to have, the vegetative state kind of thing where it's fast. It's just 2.5 minutes long. It's fast through. Or we'll go to a power ballad that's 5 minutes long. Or an experimental song that ended up being that first time go around with 8 minutes. It's just
Yeah.
whatever. You put it in a big pot and say, we're not going to confine ourselves to that. And that's what I think bands like Suicidal and DRI and Cro-Mags, I think they've all done that to an extent. I don't think they said we're not going to, just because we're labeled hardcore punk, we're not going to play punk all the time. If we
Yeah.
want to play it like a How Will I Laugh Tomorrow from Suicidal, it's got the pretty kind of vocals at the beginning. It's the guitar works great. It's not real fast until the end, towards the end. But they have I shot your mom, I saw your mommy. Then they have songs like Institutionalized. And it's like they do whatever the hell they want, and they've been successful at it for 45 years doing
Yeah.
that with that formula. So that's my favorite. If I can't choose between classic and modern, I have to go crossover.
Okay.
Just because we were, and to be honest, because we were exposed to it a lot when we were younger with our friends here in town. We're in our hometown, and we seen the vibe around us with the bands like Hawthorne Heights down in Dayton, Miss May I from Troy down there. These guys were ended up being big bands. They were kind of that way too. Hawthorne's considered emo. Miss May I's considered like a metalcore kind of thing, but they're all on the verge of rock and metal.
Yeah,
And the pioneers of that for us was Lightbone.
yeah,
They were too rock for punk and too punk for rock,
yeah,
and that was their slogan. And I'm right there with them. I think that's the best music to have.
yeah,
Is don't be confined to one section. So yeah, I'm a crossover hybrid guy. Put it that way. I
yeah.
really, unless you want to pick a favorite from each genre, I'll do that. I don't have a problem with that.
I, a lot of it, Mikey, is just for me. It was I enjoy both, and I'm with you on the crossover, just because of our experience. So I can honestly say I like to be able to pick and choose. If we want to do punk, we do punk. If we want to do rock, we do rock. That was always cool. So I love the newer stuff, the more modern punk, because it still has that spirit and that sound in spots.
Yeah,
It's just the quality sounds better. It's more shined up. So your fucking punk purists are going to fucking argue this till the end of time. They will.
yeah, oh yeah,
So
yeah,
it's going to be a huge fucking battle between fans of punk that are going to go either one or the other. We're more in the middle because we get to enjoy the best of both worlds. To put it honestly,
yeah,
so there's some classic stuff that sounds bad but is cool, and then there's the new stuff that sounds cool but it's just not. It doesn't have that fucking completely have that anarchist type fucking feeling, and it's got its angst, but it's not the same thing. So they're totally two different worlds,
yeah.
in my
And I
opinion.
think for me, as a vocalist person that likes to hear vocals, some of the vocals of the classic punk really irritated me. Not so
Yeah.
much like "God Save the Queen" and all that stuff. That drove me nuts at times. Or Holiday in Cambodia and all that stuff. It's just that vocal fry they got. It's the English thing or something. Some of that irritates me a little bit, but I still liked it for the most part. But like the new modern stuff, I like the Offspring because he can sing really well. You still have the speed. The guitar riffs are still classic to an extent. So they're the closest thing I think to classic is be like
Okay.
Pennywise and the Offspring, where it'd be like the two that play closest to the belt, but they have better singers for me, if that
Okay.
makes sense. I mean, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm like, there's no wrong answer. If you're a classic aficionado, then that's what you like. I like a little bit more polished music for the most part. I mean, even some of the greatest bands ever have had really badly produced albums, but there's still people like that back then. They still like it now sometimes. I'm more of a I like to be able to hear it. I don't like to
Yeah.
hear badly produced in and out sounds and something way too loud in my face.
Yeah.
I like it all spread out nice and even.
Well, for the Offspring, I mean, I love the fucking Offspring. I do, and a lot of it is the vocals and the backing vocals. It's like they knew exactly where to put the stuff in to accentuate where it needed to be. So
Yeah,
I gravitated towards them because at least the early stuff, Ignition and Smash, still kind of had that. They were more punk rock than trying to experiment with some of the sounds that they did in some of their later albums.
yeah, yeah.
So
I mean,
that was a big appeal for me. It's like, God damn, these guys, and just where they put those backing vocals was like, wow, this is fucking. I like this shit, and
yeah,
I can
for the
still do
Offspring. I
this,
mean,
and yeah,
The kids aren't all right will always be my favorite Offspring song. Just something about it. It was faster. There was a story to it. You could understand it. He was telling the story. You could understand his lyrics. And they had the whoa in the background every once in a while. Then they would sing in harmony and the chorus. Yeah, that was cool. But and that one and Pennywise Bro Hymn, I think are the two modern songs that kind of, if I had to choose, would lean me towards modern.
Okay.
If it was just a vast battle between the two. But yeah, you can't go wrong with anything that if you love it, you love it. And
Yeah.
it just for me, I'm a little bit more polished person, not technical. I still like sloppy playing to an extent, but I like to be able to hear it crisply.
Yeah.
Leave all the screw ups in there. I don't care. But if I want to hear it like crystal clear. Everything's leveled out right. The bass, the drums, the vocals mixed well. I don't want to hear this stuff sounds like a basement tape from 1975. It's just not my listening style. I appreciate what they did back then, but I really, you remaster them all, make them sound better. I'll probably love them all. It's the way it is. So yeah, that's my probably stupid opinion to the diehard punk people, but yeah, I like it clean, man.
Well, all right, Mikey. Hopefully, we didn't piss too many people that love their punk rock off.
Sorry,
I
I
mean,
don't
we got
dislike
it.
punk.
We like stuff from both eras. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly. So punk is good. Is good. Punk is good. I do like my
yeah,
punk.
yeah. I don't
New
deep
and
dive
old.
like, yeah. I like the legends, it's like I don't really dive deep into a lot of stuff, but hey, I can't do it. I can't do it all the time. I got about a million other subgenres I got to do first.
All right, Mikey. I think we can wrap it up.
Yes, sir. I believe so.
All right. This is Skeet.
Mushin Mikey over here.
See ya.
Peace out.